An ancient kingdom lost to time, buried beneath the wild growths of a near impenetrable jungle. Goblins, Viperians, undead, demons, and even giants, all vying to control their own portions of this vast valley by way of over 45 Shadowdark dungeons, just ready for your adventurers to explore. That is the premise of the Devoured Labyrinth from RPG Ramblings, and I'll share my review right after this. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I'll be sharing my review of the Devoured Labyrinth from RPG Ramblings. This 122-page digest-sized hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $40. If you want to score just the PDF alone, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for a very nice price of $12.99. Having said that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the Devoured Labyrinth. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, the fine folks over at RPG Ramblings were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find inside. And then, of course, lastly, this is packed full of dungeons for Shadowdark. So if you're a player, keep in mind, I will stay relatively spoiler-free, but you're probably going to see some things as I flip on through that are going to ruin some of the surprises. So I just want to let you know that right up front. Now, of course, if your game master has been kicking around, picking up the Devoured Labyrinth, let them know about this review. That way they can approach this and make a far more informed buying decision. First thing we're going to do is take a peek at the credits page, because there are a lot of folks who worked very hard to bring this to life. In fact, these are all of the authors right here. So let's give credit where credit is due. So this actually started out as a project where all of these gamers decided they were going to design dungeons for Shadowdark. And it evolved into the Devoured Labyrinth. So we do have 5 regions of this jungle, which actually is the location of an ancient kingdom that is essentially lost to time. And we have 5 different regions. They all have a bit of a particular focus to them as well. Now, I will say there isn't necessarily an overarching storyline to these various different dungeons, but because this is designed for the old school mentality, obviously enough, you're going to see emergent play coming about throughout these various different dungeons so that you will have an established storyline that develops from just simply what's going on with the player characters. We're going to get a bit of information about the ancient history of Fjordholm, that was the kingdom, and then the 5 different regions. So we have the Goblin Hidey Holes, which is going to be for levels 1 to 2. Then we move into the Central Jungle, which is levels 3 to 5. Labyrinth is 4 to 7. The Demon Frontier is 6 to 9. And then the Giant Hills is 8 to 10. We also have a funnel adventure to kick things off. So if you wanted to utilize a funnel, you certainly can. Essentially, the storyline here would be that this entrance into this valley has been found because the valley is nearly impenetrable because of the jungle. And some various different characters looking to make their name, maybe find some riches, decide they're going to embark on this path to see if they can get into the jungle. So that is actually the longest of the dungeons that we have present in the Devoured Labyrinth, because the vast majority of these are going to be 1 or 2 pages. We do have some longer dungeons in here, but for the most part, these are designed just to be dropped into any established Shadowdark campaign. Or if you would like, you can create your own campaign built around the Devoured Labyrinth. Each of the regions is going to have the random encounter tables. So we have exterior and interior. And I would say that if you're going to utilize these random encounters, and they are interesting, so keep that in mind, I would make sure that I also had some extras that I've got in my back pocket, because there are a dozen of them and they tend to be unique. So it isn't just, oh, it's 4 to 6 goblins. No, there's things going on to kind of set the scene. So very nicely done there. And then we'll start getting into the actual dungeons themselves. So as an example, Doomhold is a 2-pager. The 2-pagers usually will run approximately 12 rooms. The 1-pagers are about 4 to 6 rooms. So like I said, once again, very easy to just pick up one of these and drop them right into your campaign that you're playing, or maybe use them as a one-shot, maybe as an introduction to Shadowdark as well. So as far as the dungeons themselves, there's a really nice mix as far as what the purpose of that dungeon happens to be. Now, of course, not every single one of these knocks it out of the park. There are a few sprinkled throughout that are relatively ho-hum, I guess I would say. But for the most part, they are all very interesting. And of course, because this is designed for Shadowdark and it does have that old school Renaissance vibe to it, the way that these areas are presented, very concise, right to the point. We get a little bit of read aloud that is essentially setting you up for what is in this area. And then anything of interest, such as monsters or NPCs, what have you, throughout. So we do start off, our first region is mainly goblins. Then we move to our second region that is mostly Viperians, which are the snake folk of Shadowdark. Then we move into the third region, which is undead. And they are more powerful undead. So we're not just looking at, oh, it's just a bunch of zombies and skeletons. No, things get a little trickier than just that. And then we will get into the demon area, pretty wild. And then finally, we wrap up with the giants. So we do have different factions, and there are opportunities for the player characters to parlay with these various different factions. Not everybody is necessarily looking to just battle anything that shows up in these dungeons. You might have opportunities to avoid combat by way of stealth or parlay or other ways to get around things, use of magic and so forth. So I thought that was very interesting. These aren't the sort of dungeons that you would see for, oh, I guess I'll say Dungeons and Dragons these days, where the vast majority of this is all scripted, that certain things are going to happen at certain points in time. No, these are pretty wide open. So anything could pretty much go. And that is one of the reasons why I'm such a big fan of the old school Renaissance in the first place. So one thing I will point out that I did have a little bit of a problem with are some of these maps. Most of these maps you can read. You can see well enough. And yes, of course, there is a free PDF that's included with the hardcover. So utilizing the PDF, you're able to zoom in, so you won't really have this issue. Some of the maps are pretty small. Not many of them, most of them are very easily made out. But there were a few that I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is tiny. I can't really make out the different rooms all that well. Little bit of a strain. But outside of that, that was pretty much my only major critique as far as the Devoured Labyrinth. So, something else to keep in mind, these various different factions, for the most part, are at each other's throats. So, the Viperians don't get along with the goblins, nor the demons. The demons don't get along with the Viperians and the undead, and so forth. So, you tend to have the occupants of the adjacent regions pretty much at each other's throats at all time. So pretty cool. So if you're playing this as a campaign, it would be possible to maybe use the factions against each other. So as an example, the giants hate the demons and the demons hate the giants. So really nicely done. And as you can see, this is just jam-packed with little dungeons that you could utilize in a snap. So that is a peek inside the Devoured Labyrinth from RPG Ramblings. Swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. All in all, I was pleasantly surprised by the Devoured Labyrinth. A lot of cool little dungeons that you could easily utilize in a snap. I mean, there's not a lot of prep needed for 1 and 2 page dungeons. Just give it a quick read, kind of get your creative juices flowing, and you should be good to go. As far as utilizing the Devoured Labyrinth as a campaign, I can easily see that also because we have this big valley. You can use it as a hex crawl. Some of the dungeon locations are established on the map. Others can be dropped in wherever you feel like doing it. Now, one thing I will point out is as far as the wilderness travel and things like that, there are no rules for that because we haven't seen the Western Reaches yet for Shadowdark. In fact, I think that's the name of the book. Pretty sure. So we don't have that as of yet. I know it's on the very near horizon, but I don't think there's going to be any issues with the Devoured Labyrinth conflicting with the upcoming release from the Arcane Library. I think it'll mesh just perfectly fine. All in all, you should have fun with these. Once again, not every dungeon is going to knock it out of the park, but I can say that most of them are very entertaining. As far as the production quality, really nicely done. This is a very, very solid digest sized hardcover. In fact, I love how the artwork on the front and the back is sort of embossed on the cover. Very cool. Paper stock, very, very nice. The ink kind of pops off the page. I like that, definitely. And then, of course, there is a good sprinkling of line art throughout. And then, of course, the maps are very well done also. So, on a scale of 0 to 10, I give the Devoured Labyrinth from RPG Ramblings an 8.5 out of 10. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the Gaming Gang, if you enjoy the outlet, if you feel we're a valuable resource, there are a few different ways that you can help support the outlet. One, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal. You can even become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find all that information down in the show notes. Also in the show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server, absolutely free to sign up. So be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. If you like the video, by all means, give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. And if you ring the bell, select all notifications, because that way, not only will you find out when I share videos such as this review, you'll also be informed when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to see here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.